Welcome to the Offseason Fantasy Pros. My name is Andrew Erickson, and today I'm coming at you with my top 10 players we're never drafting again in fantasy football. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But before we get to the list of players that have caused us so much pain, if you want a chance to win a premium one-year subscription to Betting Pros, your place to start being smarter and not harder, all you have to do is subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel right now, comment below in this video, and that is it. Announcing a winner right here on the channel. So make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize. Now, let's get to the list of players we're never drafting again in fantasy football. Wide receiver Quintin Johnson. Is it too soon to label Quintin Johnson a bust after his rookie season? Nope, I don't think so. Last we saw of QJ, he had 2 catches for 17 yards back in week 18. He's a bust. Don't be swayed. He played all the snaps, had all the opportunities with Keenan Allen injured the last few weeks of the season to step up. He didn't. Johnson finished 61st among 63 qualifying wide receivers in yards per route run as a rookie. Josh Palmer caught as many passes, 38, as Johnston did in 7 fewer games played. My long-lost brother, Alex Erickson, was out-targeting Johnston the last 2 weeks of the season. Palmer is the Chargers wide receiver to draft, not named Keenan Allen next year, because we definitely are not drafting this next Chargers wide receiver ever again. Wide receiver, Mike Williams. There may not be another wide receiver on modern-day fantasy football that is synonymous with boom or bust than Big Mike Williams. He was productive before he tore his ACL in week 3 as a wide receiver 15 overall and wide receiver 17 in points per game. But it's the same story every year with Mike Williams. Wide receiver 20 points per game in 2022, but he missed 4 games. At this point, it seems very unlikely Williams will ever pan out as a truly epic wide receiver 1. We're trying to get this season since he's teased us every single year since back in 2018. He's effective enough when healthy to post massive spike weeks that we know will not endure the length of the season. And to make matters worse, he's a logical cut salary cap candidate for the Chargers entering his age 30 season in October. Feel old yet? Yeah. Mike Williams is going to be 30 years old this year. And speaking of our elders, quarterback Aaron Rodgers. In 2022, Rodgers finished as a top 12 quarterback twice. He had 0 spike weeks with 0 top 6 finishes. Rodgers hasn't passed for 300 yards in an NFL game since week 14 of the 2021 season. At this point in his career, he's also adding 0 value with his legs to bolster any type of fantasy production. He totaled less than 100 rushing yards total in 2022. He's coming off the Achilles injury at age 40 for the New York Jets behind a patchwork offensive line. It's not hard to squint and see how this doesn't work out this year. Just say no to A-Rod in fantasy football from here on out. Tight end Darren Waller. I was high on Waller entering 2023, claiming if he could stay healthy, he could be very productive. Well, guess what didn't happen? He didn't stay healthy. He missed 5 games, and Waller has missed an average of 6 games over the last 3 seasons. And because the Giants' offense was so bad due to more injuries, that also held him back in his overall production. He scored 1 time the entire season. Although I was correct about Waller being the clear alpha in the Giants passing game, he had a 21% target share, 30% air yard share. Among tight ends, he actually ranked 1st in weighted opportunity. So the opportunities were there. He just didn't deliver because he was hurt and he wasn't good. If you look at what he did before his injury, though, weeks 1 through 7, 5th in routes run, ranked 3rd in receiving yards, and 4th in expected fantasy points per game. So with Waller likely falling more in drafts after another injury-ridden season, even though he still finished tight end 14 in points per game, he's actually kind of interesting because he's all reward with the same low risk as all the other late round tight ends because tight ends are just horrible across the board. But I get it. If you want to avoid an extremely injury-prone player at an injury-prone position entering his age 32 season, it's not hard to paint a picture of Darren Waller failing to fire yet again. Running back Alexander Madison. So I wasn't right about Darren Waller, but I was correct about strongly fading Alexander Madison into absolute oblivion. Let this be a reminder that if a number 2 running back cannot get snaps unless an injury occurs to the starter, there are massive red flags present that cannot be ignored. Even though Madison struggled throughout the 2023 season, he maintained RB1 duties in Minnesota, weeks 1 through 12. He had the opportunities to deliver, and yet he averaged an abysmal 7.6 points per game despite ranking top 10 in total carries. He scored 0 rushing touchdowns on 180 carries and 700 rushing yards. Second to last in fantasy points scored under expectation, Tony Pollard finished first in that category. The constant underwhelming led to Madison eventually losing his job outright to Ty Chandler over the final 5 weeks of the season. Even though Madison is under contract with Minnesota next year, he's just keeping that RB1 seat warm for the next better running back to come along in Minnesota. Speaking of Vikings running backs, running back Cam Akers. This one hits too close to home, folks. Cam Akers fell to favor in Los Angeles under Sean McVay, completely missed out on the Kyren Williams role in the Rams' high-powered offense. He went from a potential RB1 overall candidate had he gotten that role to the trade block. And not just any type of trade. He was traded to the Vikings for the lowest value pick you can find, a 2026 7th-round draft pick. But he was so close to unseating Alexander Madison in his starting job. But before he got his chance, Akers tore his Achilles again. This time, it was his left Achilles. With him on the free agent market, we have finally hit the end of the road with Akers for fantasy football, I'm afraid. Goodbye, old friend. I won't ever forget your 6-game stretch at the end of the 2022 season when you led the NFL in rushing yards. Sticking with Rams, let's pivot over to a high-profile wide receiver for our next player we're never drafting again. Wide receiver Cooper Kupp. Many are going to point to the injuries Cooper Kupp dealt with throughout the season as a reason to be concerned about him moving forward. We've been down this road with Michael Thomas for years. Once the milk is spoiled, it doesn't unspoil. Kupp never looked himself all year. He's going to be 31 years old in 2024. A lot of his production was salvaged by his 5 receiving touchdowns. He posted a career low yards per route run at 1.77. He went over 100 yards 4 times, but he's also held under 55 yards in his 8 other games. He was overall wide receiver 27 in points per game, despite a 26% target share. Look, folks, Puka Nacua has taken over as the alpha in the Rams passing game. Get out before things get worse for an aging Kupp. He missed an average over the last 6 games the last 2 seasons, and the 2021 season seems like a distant memory when he was breaking records left and right. Again, Michael Thomas was breaking records left and right too until he got hurt. Don't fall for the trap again. Running back Naji Harris. The Jaylen Warren versus Naji Harris debate figures to be a hot button topic among fantasy drafters in 2024, but the numbers suggest that this was close to a 50-50 split as a backfield can be in the NFL. Naji finished with 10.4 and Warren finished with 9.6 points per game in 18 total games, both outside the top 32. Both guys, again, were not top 30 running backs points per game in half PPR scoring. In full PPR, Jaylen Warren actually outscored Naji Harris. Now, Harris was the main red zone back, while Warren saw the vast majority of opportunities as a receiver. 74 targets, ranked 6th among all running backs. He was targeted on 27% of his routes run. Warren was also the superior as a rusher, 4th in yards per carry, 5.2, and 3rd in rushing yards per carry after contact, 3.7. So the 2024 discourse for this backfield is really less about Harris and his strong finish. He was RB9 from week 9 onward, RB18 in points per game, finishing 2nd in rushing yards overall, but more about how long can Naji Harris actually hold off Jaylen Warren for yet another calendar year. Harris did this last year as well. He finished 3rd in rushing yards from week 10 onward in 2022, but part of that's just general regression because he sees so much volume. But it's also very touchdown dependent. In the second halves of the last 2 seasons, Harris has scored 13 touchdowns versus 2 touchdowns in the first halves. But how many times should we be willing to draft Harris knowing he's going to dig you into a hole to start the year? RB33 and RB28 to open the first halves of the last 2 seasons. And Harris has been top 10 in touches the last 2 seasons, but has not cracked the top 12 fantasy running backs overall as the RB15 and RB26, averaging the same points per game as Warren this past season at 10, weeks 1 through 17. If he starts slow for a 3rd straight year, I don't think he'll get the chance to dig out of the hole. Harris looks like an early avoid candidate entering the last year of his rookie deal, unless the team picks up the 5th-year option. Pivoting to another high-profile running back Austin Ekeler. It was a sour way for Austin Ekeler to end his career in LA. 4th worst rushing EPA among all ball carriers. He was RB31 overall, averaging fewer than 10 points per game. The year was a disaster for Ekeler. I can't help but think he's on the major downswing of his football career. He's going to be a free agent after career lows across the board. We saw the cliff hit real quick for Dalvin Cook, who was a guy that we were taking inside the top 5 every single year. That's been Ekeler, and I think Ekeler might be next. Be wary, even if he projects well on a new team. And last but not least, cover boy here, wide receiver Stefon Diggs. I could have gone with the lowest hanging fruit here with Gabe Davis as my Buffalo Bill wide receiver to never draft again, but I wanted a challenge, folks. Look, after all, everybody knows about Davis. He's frustrating. He's a boomer bust guy. He had 5 games with 20 plus fantasy points last year to go along with 7 touchdowns, 1,200 air yards. But he also went completely catchless in 4 of his last 8 games played. Woof. So instead, let's talk about the terrible year for Stefon Diggs. Wide receiver 10 overall, averaged just 13 points per game as a wide receiver 15.5 point scoring. His lackluster finish is what fantasy football gamers were pulling their hair about. From weeks 10 onward, Diggs was the wide receiver 45, averaging a meager 7.3 points and 42 receiving yards per game. Khalil Shakur had more receiving yards than Diggs over this time frame. And this was right around the time the Bills swapped to Joe Brady as their new offensive coordinator after they fired Ken Dorsey in their Week 10 loss to the Denver Broncos. It's not like Diggs also wasn't seeing opportunities. On the year, the Bills' polarizing wide receiver finished just below a 30% target share, had over 1,800 air yards, 12th overall in weighted opportunity. Even during the bad finish, Diggs still had a 25% target share and strong route participation at 85%. He just wasn't efficient. Not good. This isn't the first time we've seen Diggs stumble across the finish line. The last 6 games of the 22 season, Diggs was under 10 points per game. Given the Bills' massive need for a number 2 receiver to replace Gabe Davis, who will be a free agent, there's going to be more competition for targets in this offense. That makes it tough to draft Diggs confidently, coming off career lows across the board, entering his age 31 season. That's going to tie a bow on my list of 10 players we're never drafting again in fantasy football leagues. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe, and share with all your friends. And again, be sure to go check out on the website early 2024 rankings, fantasypros.com/rankings. And again, before you go, if you want a chance to win a premium 1-year subscription to Betting Pros, your place to start betting smarter and not harder, all you have to do is subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel right now, comment below this video, and that is it. I'm announcing a winner right here on the channel. So make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize. Thanks for watching, and don't draft these players in 2024.